Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. And with that, we will do roll call.
Present. Here.
Councilmember O'Hara is here. Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Here.
And Mayor Ehlers.
Here. Okay, if everyone can rise, if they can, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item number 4 would be special presentations, but we have none tonight. And item number 5 is oral communications, and how many do we have now?
We have 7.
7, so we'll do the full 3 minutes.
Okay, and just a reminder to those of you speaking under oral communications, this is the time to speak on matters that are not listed on the agenda, and each person has 3 minutes. Christine Schindler, Bernie Dillon, and then Natalie Satoon.
Hey there, everybody. Christine Schindler, East Encinitas. So like usual, I have my plan, and then I change my plan. So very quickly, I'm just going to run through these slides, but really what I want to do is focus on the last bit, basically what happened on Sunday on our roadways. But I wanted to revisit Sharrows, and I'm just going to show this again. I've shown it, I think, 1 or 2 times. I have a video that I'm going to share because I think this stretch of roadway could really benefit from Sharrows. And we had a plan, and the plan got a bit sidetracked, and I want to get us back on the plan. So just look in your email to come, a video that shows exactly why Sharrows are needed on this roadway. And then I wanted to invite the community and staff and council to our next Encinitas Bike Walk, community bike ride and walk. This one we're going to do combined. So first part of it will be a walk, second part will be a ride. To let people know about a pathway that exists that a lot of people don't know about in East Encinitas. So I encourage you to come along. Mentioned this in email to council, but then also today during the school district liaison meeting, and I just want everyone to know that we have Safe Routes to School and to other location maps under development. We've been working on them for a while. We're going to use the summer to vet them and then get them out there, probably roll them out at the end of the summer. So this had been mentioned on the dais as something that should be done, could be done, and I just wanted to let everybody know that it's actually in the works. I was going to spend time on this, but I think I'll shift gears. But this was looking at East Encinitas and the El Camino Real corridor, really wanting the specific plan to move forward in a good way, to make better use of all these blue circles, which are our parking lot areas. We have a lot of land that's devoted solely to cars, and I think it can be repurposed in a better way. However, I just wanted to, if you will, show that now. I just want to make a repeated request that we all just need to slow ourselves down, not be as distracted, not be driving as quickly. On Sunday morning, which Sunday morning should be a mellow time to take a walk, take a bike ride, drive in our city. I'm running out of time. Slow the fast down.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The Santa Fe project in 51, please stop turning Encinitas into PB or any overbuilt communities. The builder is requesting 10 waivers to meet. One is to meet ADA, because he's going to have to remove trees to meet that requirement. The bus stop that just got put in on Santa Fe Drive now has to be moved. The traffic report was done before the changes to Santa Fe Drive were made. So that traffic report is pretty much null and void. It needs to be redone. There are other purposes for this land that could bring our community together. And I'm going to say something, and everybody's going to go, no way. But I was at the Park and Recreation's Encinitas Academy, and somebody brought up at that about having a community pool just for Encinitas. So I pulled these pictures of using the area instead of for 51 units. Let's put in a community pool. We could have the kids at the high school use it. We could do Red Cross, American Red Cross. You know, when I grew up in the 70s, they had the swimming pools where you go to your friend's neighbor's house and you learned how to swim. They also taught CPR. They also taught kids how to be lifeguards. There were many other things, and the city could make money off of this pool by putting things like these little playgrounds in where kids could play and communities coming together, maybe have a barbecue area. We have enough parks, but we don't have a swimming pool, which I know would be a lot of money to put it in, but right there where 51 units would go in would be great. On June 9th at 2:45 p.m., an emergency vehicle was trying to come down Santa Fe Drive. It was laying on its horn for 30 seconds, because I sat there and listened to it, could not get through traffic to get to the hospital. I mean, the guy finally said, move. There was nowhere for people to go except to run the red light and to turn on one of the streets so the emergency vehicle could get through. This is so dangerous. We have to fix Santa Fe Drive. It's got to be opened up so cars, emergency vehicles can get through, cars can move over. People are still parking in it forward because they can't figure out how to park backwards on it. And I see that all the time. But it's going to cost somebody their life. We need to fix Santa Fe Drive as soon as possible. Thank you.
Following Natalie is Barbara Gordon, Garvin Walsh, then Scott Campbell.
Hi, Natalie Satoon Cardiff, Mayor, Council. I'm here to talk about the municipal code violations, many of which impact public health and safety here in our town, 182 to be exact. First, we need to applaud our Sheriff's Department for their efforts, because what I've learned this last week is disgraceful. Each citation deputies wrote over the last 5 years was nothing more than a waste of their time and the paper they were written on. Yet they continued to persevere. In April, I made a public records request for all Muni Code violations with disposition status, both with San Diego Sheriff and our city. San Diego Sheriff records evidence Captain Watt's 182 violations were true and correct. When my City of Encinitas PRA requesting case disposition came back for what I thought was unfulfilled, Encinitas totally failed to prosecute up until last 2 weeks. For 3 years, I asked our city to prosecute municipal code violations, which were temporarily on hold because the jail was not booking misdemeanors during COVID. However, when jail booking resumed in 2023, former council failed to resume prosecution. Are you all aware Mayor Kranz and City Manager Antle completely dropped the ball? For at least 5 years, all ordinances listed, those ordinances, have had zero consequence while our surrounding cities prosecute. The homeless network grew because our homeless knew which communities were soft. Not only are we soft, we have zero enforcement. Mayor Kranz and Mayor Blake Spear created the new no non-smoking and shopping cart removal ordinances. That was just a dog and pony show. In other cities, if violators fail to appear to their hearing, a bench warrant is issued, and any repeat deputy encounter with a violator is taken into custody. This is the fastest and easiest way to clean up our town, and that's completely been ignored. No wonder the service resistant are right here. Why has our city leadership subjected our deputies risking their safety, trying to cite violators, as well as failing taxpayers by nullifying one of the most expensive line items in our own budget? Why are we not holding our city attorney responsible for sloughing off his duty to prosecute. Our taxpayer dollars have been wasted by former city attorney's negligence to our city. We must replace Tarquin and his firm immediately. For this and other reasons, it is not in our city's best interest to maintain this relationship. We must immediately reverse course with our reputational fallout of Encinitas being known as lawless on these codes. Please require monthly reports from the city attorney and manager to assure our own muni code is followed. It is time to remove those who obstruct city leadership and functionality. Last week, we learned Patty Andrews withdrew a $2.8 million grant to clean up homeless encampments without notifying council. With a previous council vote, what else are we unaware of? I am requesting an audit to for our own protection, all of you all, for your stewardship and our constituent tax dollars. Please consider this to disclose what unbeknown, deceptive decisions this current council must correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Gordon?
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Barbara Gordon, and I work with San Dieguito Alliance. I am the adult advisor for the Changers, one of the Hispanic high school youth group that both live here in Encinitas and Solana Beach. The Changers are working on many policies to improve their lives, their family lives, the community, and the environment. They would like the City Council to take a formal stance in support of California Assembly Bill 762, which would ban the sale of and distribution of disposable vapes statewide. Each year, Americans throw away 150 million vape pens. That's almost 4.5 every second. Disposable vapes contain lithium batteries, toxic plastics, and hazardous marijuana and nicotine residue. And they end up on our high school campuses, our landfill, waterways, and our streets. AB 762 builds on a recent California legislation that classified marijuana as hazardous waste. It was a necessary step, but it was not the solution. The only effective solution is to eliminate these products altogether. These devices pose a health risk, particularly to our youth. Disposable vapes are often high in nicotine, concentrated marijuana, and are designed to appeal to our teens with sweet flavors, very slick packaging. This has fueled the addiction rates with consequences ranging from respiratory issues to impaired brain development to our youth. That has increased the risk of substance use. The Surgeon General has called vaping a public health epidemic, and these disposable vapes, which are easy to hide, easy to use, hard to trace, are driving this epidemic. Right now, AB 762 is in committee in the State Assembly. A hearing was scheduled, but later canceled at the author's request. And maybe this is a signal that it needs stronger local support. A formal resolution from the city of Encinitas could help move this critical legislation forward. I know that the city of Encinitas wants to protect its youth, promote safety and health and the environment of all of our citizens. Supporting AB 762 would build on the ideal, demonstrate our city's commitment to environmental responsibility, youth protection, and public health. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
And we can't discuss it tonight, but I can refer it to staff, so refer this to staff.
Good evening. My name is Garvin Walsh, and I am a Cardiff resident. I'd like to share some brief thoughts with you about policy related to the homeless issue. First, I'd like to thank you all for devoting time and attention to the topic as you did in the recent review of the Homeless Action Plan. Certainly, homeless policy is a complex topic deserving careful deliberation. I recognize that there's a big difference between campaigning for office and governing effectively once elected. Less black and white, more gray. No doubt those voters in Encinitas who were paying attention recognize that you were trying to deal with the problem responsibly. Looking forward, I have some suggestions I hope you will consider. First, as a manager of mine once told me long ago, one cannot manage what one does not measure. I suggest the council think carefully about appropriate metrics to monitor in formulating and implementing homeless policy and share those with the public. As an example, Captain Watts revealed at the HAP meeting a data set which quantified the enforcement of local ordinances relevant to the homeless problem in Encinitas. That chart was coincidentally on the wall here a moment ago. I hope that report will be a regular disclosure to the public. It would be good if this information were updated online or here at council, perhaps monthly, but at least quarterly. Also, I was pleased to note that the city attorney reported that he had begun to prosecute infractions and crimes resulting from the sheriff's renewed enforcement efforts. I'd like the council to instruct the city attorney to produce a report similar to that presented by Captain Watts, so the public will have the opportunity to assess the city's efforts more fully. We should be able to reconcile one report with the other so we know what's going on. Again, monthly or quarterly data. Relatedly, I would like the council to ask the city attorney to explain why this enforcement was absent until recently. Was a policy of non-enforcement adopted by him, or was it pursuant to an instruction from others? Who was the author of that policy? It's a simple question deserving of a straightforward answer, perhaps one which should be elicited in sworn testimony under oath. It has long been my view that we do no favors to the homeless by making it easy to remain on the streets. With persistent enforcement, we can make rehabilitation seem to them like the better alternative. I am confident that with more enforcement, we will see a reduction of the homeless population in Encinitas and will likely save some lives. Thank you.
Following Scott Campbell is Lisa Provenzano, and then Molly Hintlian.
Okay. All right, good evening, council. Thank you for all the time that you put in. I truly appreciate it. And I think the city appreciates the recent efforts to restoring vibrancy downtown. It's weird that I have to attend the mobility and traffic safety commissions to get the best data on public safety. And I actually want to thank the city and the sheriffs for the 508 year-to-date traffic violations that have been issued, including 376 for basic speed law and over 83 for over 65 miles an hour. So we hear lots about people speeding and so much. The city is doing stuff to stop this. It's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be people speeding, but the city is helping here. Now, along with that, there's 50 municipal code violations on that list, which is weird. You know, public mobility and traffic safety. I don't know why there's mobility or municipal code. I asked the council to do follow-ups on those and future municipal code violations just to see the status and the end resolution of those. And if the council's not willing to do that, perhaps they can get the Public Health and Safety Commission to add that to the work plan as a follow-up, because as similar to other commissions do follow-ups to housing and traffic, and there's other commissions, they all do follow-ups. Maybe that's something that you can do. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, and law enforcement. This is about 845 Santa Fe Drive, the 51-unit development that will come before you at some time. Last night, at the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, they all came forth and they said this plan is a 5 years in the making. But there were 3 people at the planning committee when they heard it, and they all had questions about safety. So 51 units, we only get 5 low-income units out of that. They decided not to have an exit onto Minerva. It's right across from San Diego Union High School District. So they have one exit onto Santa Fe Road. This first picture is the former city council said that there was a road down the middle so that the fire trucks could go, or a lane down the middle. There's a fire station down the street. There's a hospital down the street. This shows one of them. There's another one. So how do they go down the middle? Next one. The back end thing. If someone's in this car who can't climb over the little barrier, they have to go out into traffic. Someone even mentioned he has a wheelchair. He has to go over to get through to the sidewalk. Next one. If you're walking behind your car, can you flip it for me? Thank you. If you're walking behind your car, this is what's behind most cars, the rocks, not the sand part. You have to walk up that. You have to go over the rocks. You walk down right into the bike lane and then onto the sidewalk. This cannot be American Disabilities Act okay. And that was one of their waivers that they're looking at. I don't know the details of it. Okay, the next one. This is the bike lane. There's one on the street and then going onto the sidewalk. Drive by on trash day, the trash cans are right out. There's no place for the pedestrians to walk. Next one. And that just shows where the fences are and everything, where the trash cans are. So when that comes, there must be some city ordinances. I know the mandates come from the state, but this is right across from San Diego High School. How can we have that? Thank you.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Molly, Hintlian. 2 weeks ago at Council, I spoke about the resource management and the consultant Ascent and Kearns and West, because I only got 3 minutes. I think it's clear that we have very talented staff. Evan Jednick in particular, I find to be qualified to do this resource management, and I asked the city council to look at the budget and perhaps looking at Kearns and West so far, next slide, and Ascent. Have we spent all the money? Is it possible to pull back this project and use the funds not spent to Santa Fe Drive or other? Next slide. So it's kind of hard to follow because my laptop had a meltdown. So I provided the 2 schedules for Kearns and West and Ascent. Next slide. Turn it. It's really hard to see, but without doing a full public records request, I'm not sure if we've spent all the money with them. I did read the contract, and we can cancel the contract at any time. And would it be prudent to look at that and bring this project in-house and involve the citizens to help update the resource management to our general plan? I find that we have a very active community that would love to participate. And in fact, our general plan was written by the citizens of Encinitas. So my request is this might be an opportunity of some found money that we could prudently budget. I know council is very good at this, looking at the fine lines. Is this an opportunity to bring it in-house? They've kicked it off with us. I don't think there's anything wrong with Ascent or Kearns and West. I just think from a prudent standpoint, could we save the city money that needs to go to some desperate infrastructure, and that we engage the citizens to participate in updating our resource management? Thank you.
That concludes oral communications.
Okay, so we will move on to report from closed session for the city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council met in closed session, as indicated on the special closed session agenda, at approximately 3:30. Shortly thereafter, recessed into closed session. All members of the City Council were present in closed session. While in closed session, the City Council discussed one case, initiation of litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9.E4, number of potential cases 1. While in closed session, the City Council voted unanimously to authorize the city attorney to initiate litigation against defendants whose names will become matter of public record if and when such litigation is actually filed. And that concludes the closed session report.
Okay, thank you. And any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the posted agenda. And then moving to the consent calendar, item 8J has been pulled by a member of the public.
Which one? 8D. Okay, so I've got 8J and 8D. Okay, any others? Going once, going twice. I'll entertain a motion for the remainder.
Motion to approve all consent items other than 8D and 8J.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Let's call the question. It was Councilmember San Antonio.
Councilmember O'Hara?
Okay.
Oh, no, did you want to vote?
We need to vote on that.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
That takes us to item 8D.
So we'll go to 8D, which is the UFAC appointments.
She wants to speak on it?
Okay.
Do you need a staff report?
No.
Okay.
Appointments to Urban Forestry Advisory Committee to fill 2 unscheduled vacancies with one term ending March 1st, 2026, one term ending March 1st, 2027. We have 2 candidates, of which I am not going to, I'm not looking to oppose whether they are in there. I recommend we select them. What I do want to talk about is digging into this and kind of looking at this as a committee. It's not transparent, I'll call it, and not by any means, but not for any reason of the members of the committee or actions, but just by the way it is organized. So right now we have a committee, in this case the UFAC, run by a contractor, which is okay under our ordinances, but we've created a conflict of interest at best, or at least, and a little bit more at best. And I find there to be a lack of accountability in this, the way this is set up. Right now, we have our city arborist, who works for a contract that we have, not bound by public records requests. Why that is important, I think everything we do up here, we're constantly getting public records requests. It should be, that person should be bound by public records requests. Prior to today, thank you, Jennifer, for fixing this, the address for public comment emailed was not to the city, it was to another party. So we haven't got an email public comment on this committee since October of 2023. I find that hard to believe. And maybe by accident. Secondly, the minutes are not recorded and put on our Granicus. You have to go on a deep, deep dive to find them on our website. That's a layer of transparency we need to bring back up to the Granicus and then have all the information listed and available to the public in a way that's easy to find and where they can find it the same way they would any other piece of information, whether it be a minutes agenda or whatever. We can talk about this deeper if you want, but what I would like to do here, we can dive into the actual explanation of the committee itself, but just to keep this short and sweet, I'd like to approve the addition of the 2 members, and I would like to suspend this committee with the goal of getting it here by the fall, if not sooner, realign the advisor, develop a clear requisite of how we pick people on that. Currently, it is picked by the relevant expertise, of which probably only Joy has the skill set to actually say what that is. And it's not defined. So I think this potentially fantastic committee needs to be redrawn up so it can be effective, it can be a useful tool for the public, and it can be what a lot of people would consider to be transparent. So that's my motion. I move to approve the addition of 2 members, suspend the committee, send it to staff to have it realigned with a in-house advisor, develop a clear requisite for participation on it, and certainly clear up all the errors in recording.
And did I hear you correctly say suspended in the meantime?
Until we have it.
I'm just trying to understand your
Until we have it
motion.
correctly organized. I don't know if that's the right term. You can use whatever term you want.
Basically preempt any meetings between now and October?
No, I said by October at the latest. So if you can fix it by next week, let's go next week. But clearly, if we're acting in the public's interest, the public needs to have access to this information. There needs to be no conflict of interest in the decisions that come out of it and question of whether we are getting the information that we need to get out of it. I think that's the case with any committee we have, right?
Okay, I was just trying to understand the motion.
So it's suspended until we, as quick as possible, fix all these errors. And I don't know what a time is for that, and I don't want to put a time that's unfair to the staff, and I don't want to put a time that is going to set this thing out a year from now. I'm certainly not saying
I just
that.
have one point of order for the city attorney, which would be, I want to make sure what's on the agenda tonight. We're talking about appointments to the UFAC. Are we permitted to take actions that impact the UFAC? What's our, is the motion within bounds?
The motion really should be limited to what's on the agenda, which is appointment to the UFAC.
Okay, could we take action to agendize something else then also?
For a
As
future
part of
meeting,
this?
certainly.
For a future meeting, which is
Certainly.
kind of what he, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so
So I'll do a
that's my
follow-up motion. I'll do a
one
follow-up
concern.
motion to put this item on hold until these issues are rectified.
Okay, so table this until the issue of the minutes not being recorded on Granicus, till public comment is directed correctly, and the organization of the committee is
Ideally through staff or.
reviewed by a subcommittee, I think is what you proposed?
Sure.
Well, I'm asking.
I would, subcommittee or staff, whichever is more appropriate. I think the biggest thing is.
Said staff initially.
I said staff.
Oh, you did say
initially.
staff. Okay, I thought I heard subcommittee once in there. So staff. So that's the motion, so we would put.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I don't know that we need to delay selecting these 2 individuals necessarily. I do understand that we need to agendize it before June's up, because we're going to recess and this and that. I'm not sure. They do quarterly meetings?
I think they meet monthly.
Monthly.
Okay.
So, yeah, we want to, I get what you're saying, because this is, getting to the transparency side of this and making sure that the public has all the same information. And the fact that it's been since 2023 is pretty impressive, that there's been no emails come through or whatever, so it doesn't come directly to us. And whose email does it go to?
Caltrans at Dudek.
Oh, it goes directly to Dudek.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Well,
was in the queue to talk, but I don't see a second on that motion, and I'd like to move approval of this item as recommended, being that it's the item that's on the agenda tonight. So if we could move that forward, I would like to move that action forward independently of anything else, and there may still be discussion, but I'd like to move that action forward as is recommended by staff.
Okay. I will second your motion, but I applaud the where you're going with this, Jim, and I will entertain a second motion if I don't make it myself after we act on the first motion. I do want to take care of the business that's on the item, but I would like to then continue and talk about referring to staff what you described in two motions, separate motions, just to keep it clean. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments on the motion on the table, which is about the agenda item in front of us and the recommended
selected it.
action?
No, I don't have anything else.
For the record, this is a committee that's only required to have 5, so there's not a rush to get to this. So we have 5 currently members, so there's not like we have to do this tonight. We can move it forward and move it forward correctly.
Yeah, my motion still holds.
Yeah.
The only thing I have is that this is just going to add another item for a future date that doesn't change. If they don't need 7, they just like to have 7. It doesn't really change, doesn't delay anything, doesn't help. It just has to come back one more time for a consent item or whatever.
And if I could ask, if I could ask my colleague, Councilmember O'Hara, for a little clarification on what you're going for. What I'm hearing, if I could just say what I think I'm hearing and see if I can get your thoughts on it. I'm hearing you say there's some elements of reporting and transparency that you would like our city council to consider regarding UFAC. And I'm hearing that that this is something that we might be wanting to put some on our agenda in the near future. Is that where you are?
This is absolutely a matter of reporting. It goes beyond the UFAC. You know, we spend a lot of money on trees. And that money that we spend in the millions, we need to have that accountability. I'm really not comfortable with moving this forward, and I'll go on record as that. I'm going to vote no, and not because I don't want to put them in there. I do want to put them in there, but because I don't support moving forward with something that isn't right. I don't like the idea of get in a car and let's give it a push because it's out of gas. Let's fill up the tank first and then go.
Okay, thank you for your clarification. My motion still holds. I'm not in favor of dismantling the UFAC in any way.
I didn't say dismantle it.
In any way until we have a broader discussion that we have listed on our agenda as that broader discussion, because I think there are a lot of things to air and to talk about. So I'm happy to have that on a future agenda.
Tarquin, due to the findings here, is there anything?
I'm sorry, you're not, Jim, you're not showing up. Yeah.
Due to the findings
you need
here,
to go
is
to
there
on the
anything
floor.
legally that we can just delay the UFAC's work? I mean, this is outside of our city requirements for any of our committees, so we don't have a legal ground to take an action right now after finding this and being brought to public attention.
So thank you, Councilmember Schaefer. This specific action is not on the agenda. What's on the agenda is the appointment to the UFAC. The city council can certainly not make the appointment, or could continue it to a future date, or simply take no action. However, it can't take action that is different than what is on the agenda. It could order something else to be agendized for a future meeting, but based on the statements on the record.
And I get that. So that part I get. The part that I'm not getting is if we find something, in this case, I'm not sure illegal is the right word, but if it's an illegal process within our system, the cop doesn't drive by and see you speeding and say, well, I'm not on the same side of the road, I can't pull you over. The fact is we're seeing it happen right now. We just brought to our attention. It was a great job, but there should be something that we can do immediately. Or could we direct city manager to take action as of tomorrow to make sure that there's something that can be happened so that this is either agendized immediately next week? Because why would we go past this? It's just...
Yeah. Can I interrupt you? We have public speakers, so I'd like to take the public speakers and then, well, no, I think they came up midway.
Yeah, we have
So-
two speakers, Christine Schindler, followed by Tony Gurnoy.
So once again, Christine Schindler, Encinitas. Once again, when a consent item is pulled, one that I am here for, I get concerned, so that's why I put in my pink slip. I wanted to make sure to support the appointments of Mim and Tony. I think they're both highly qualified for this committee. I think this committee is important. And then it just goes from there. So this, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I've been to a lot of council meetings over multiple jurisdictions, and I have not seen this happening as frequently as it is in the way that it's playing out, and I'm just scratching my head. But I do want to support Mim and Tony for the UFAC, so thank you.
Tony?
Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be before you this evening. And what I would like to say as it relates to this discussion is that my hope, both as a tree expert in our community and as an aspirational committee member as well, is that I hope that you would see the resources that can be leveraged through this group as an aid to you gaining the type of transparency that we're talking through right now. And I can give you a more kind of tree management focused example. We look at this stuff and we see the words urban forest, but I want you to all look into the founding ordinance for this committee and what the actual reference to urban forest is in that literature. And in our city, when we're talking about urban forest, it's really just the public works managed trees within the city right-of-way. And think about how many trees that doesn't cover. So all of the trees in our parks, for example, are not currently subject to the purview of this committee at all. All of the trees that have gone into streetscapes that have irrigation, any of those parkway plantings, right-of-way plantings that have ongoing irrigation in the planter beds become parks managed trees. And so as it stands, the Urban Forest Advisory Committee really doesn't have the breadth of access or influence that I think we all might hope that becomes true. So rather than have the committee's actions be overly conflated with those being done by people who are being paid, admittedly, quite a lot of money to do quite a lot of work. On the committee side, we're just a bunch of volunteers from the community, and so if you want something beneficial from the group, that's what I hope everybody involved is here for. And so things that we're talking about as it relates to gaining insight on how our how our city manages trees and ways that there might be improvement, kind of structural opportunities for beneficial change. As somebody looking to join this committee, I'm like thrilled to have such conversations, but I hope to have that opportunity, which would only be amounted to me if we have this committee. So the way that I see it is that the Urban Forest Advisory Committee is the best kind of access to transparency in our tree world in our city, whether that's for you or for people who are just constituents of our community. So please give us a chance. We're here to be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to let the city manager interject.
Thank you. So, thank you, Mayor Ehlers, council members. So a couple things. It does designate the city arborist as the staff liaison to the the Urban Forest Advisory Committee. That is done by Muni Code. It doesn't mean that that can't change. Currently, we have a secretary that attends those meetings. We also have our superintendent, Rob Tobin, that attends those meetings as well. If the council wants to entertain changing the Muni Code to, say, city arborist or city staff member, we can do that. Currently, we did change the email address. The email address now has its own UFAC email address. That actually goes to Melissa Lane, who is in Public Works and also the secretary of this committee. So we've done that. Also, staff is working with the city clerk's office to make sure that agendas, minutes, and that is a committee that's recorded, audio recorded. All of that will be found on Granicus, so that is in motion now. The email address has been changed. And again, if council does want to go ahead and look at changing, it's a Muni Code, so it's an ordinance change, which means we would have to do notice, we have to do a first reading and then a second reading, and then it goes into effect 30 days from the second reading. So it would take a little bit to change that. But currently we do have 2 staff members, both the secretary and then the superintendent, that do attend those meetings as well. But we're happy to bring something back if council so wishes us to make any changes to the structure of this committee.
Okay, Councilmember O'Hara.
Yeah, I'm grateful for all the work that the people in this committee do. I think it is, to your point, it is a good asset, and that's why I said I was going to support you being on it to start, and I'm grateful you signed up. The question, though, isn't about, it hasn't been about the UFAC and this whole thing. That's just a covering on it. The piece is that we are not getting our information. I am highly skeptical that we haven't got anything since October 23rd, of 2023, rather. That seems like an awful long time for no one to care enough to send an email about a very important committee, as I'm reading and hearing, right? And so this is about transparency of process again. And for our volunteers to be successful, we need to guarantee that the information they are creating, they are receiving, all the information being passed through that is accounted for and not in conflict of interest, right? We don't know that. I will want to push for designating a staff member to this. I do have 1502-040, the city arborist piece on here, the Urban Forestry Advisory Committee right here in front of me. And it does say that. However, I think it's pretty easy to see the conflict of interest when there's multi-million dollars worth of money being exchanged. Money is the root of all evil, right? They don't say that because it's a nice thing to say. They say it because it's true. And so I want to take that conflict out of it so the arborist can just do his job. We know that the Urban Forest UFAC is doing a great job, and all of that is being brought back to council in a transparent, effective, and most productive way, because that's how we get the best results, is by making sure all the information we need to make the best decision is in there. And that is also important because that's how we represent all these people sitting out here. So that's where I'm at. I think we have a motion out there.
Yeah, we have a
Anyone wants to
motion and a
follow?
second.
I mean, and
And I think I still have discussion going, so when you yield, Deputy Mayor Lyons wants to go.
And I guess, as far as pulling things, like, hey, I'm here to make sure that we get, if it's got to be pulled, and it's on the consent calendar, we're pulling it.
Yeah.
Bring us stuff that's ready to go. Let's make sure we get all these things dialed in. I'm here to represent everybody in this city. And if that means I've got to pull items on the consent calendar, I apologize, but that's important, and I'm going to do it.
Okay. Councilmember, Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Yeah, I would just like to kind of wrap up a few thoughts. I am anxious to get these 2 positions filled on UFAC. I care a lot about UFAC. I've listened to the recordings often. They're readily available online on the city website. So I haven't seen the same concerns, but that's fair. I think Tony and Mim, when I saw both of your names come forward, and I know you both, and I know the great work you've done for the city, I'm just thrilled that you're willing to volunteer your time. And I think you're part of the solution, and so thank you, which is why I put the motion forward. Already I've heard our city manager say that an administrative change has been made so that emails would go to a staff member And I think that's maybe a way to look at, if we can direct staff to do something like that, or staff has already taken that direction and have done that. Some of these things could be easily handled without UFAC having to come back before us under a separate agenda item in the future. But if it's the will of the city council for it to come back and talk about it in more detail, I'm happy to do that too. We have a lot of tree assets in our community, and so many people love our trees. Not only do I think the public would want to come and tell us what their thoughts are about our trees and be given the opportunity to do that, I think that will get the reinforcement that everyone sees our trees as an asset to our community. So I want to, and I've got the motion to move forward with the item on the agenda tonight. I would also ask our city manager then, since you did bring forward the information that the email address has changed, do you see any other administrative level tweaks that would help address Councilmember O'Hara's concerns?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lyons. I would like to have a discussion with the Public Works Director, Sylvester Mabry. He's out this week, but next week, to see if there's any other improvements, just to take a good glance over. Obviously, we found the email address, some of the minutes and things like that not placed in the right direction. So would like to have staff do another look over, make sure if we've missed anything. Obviously, that's under my purview to give direction to, staff to go ahead and change anything that might need to be changed. We do really want to keep the commissions and committees consistent. This way everyone knows to where to find all of the information. Everybody's working under the same guise. Everybody's transparent. We're running meetings, Brown Act, everything else. So I would like to take a once over again with this committee and see if there's anything that we might need to change. And I'm very happy to do so if I find things that need improving.
I appreciate you being clear about that. Thank you.
Councilmember San Antonio.
I do support the two appointments. I work with Mim quite a bit, so I definitely think she's a great asset as well. And I have gotten to know Tony a little bit better each week. But I do see the value in what Councilman O'Hara said. We got to, if you want to be fiscally responsible, if this is just one way to keep track of that, I think that's what our constituents would want, is that the city council watch out for that. So I do support that as well. Is there any way we can possibly get the old minutes and put it in Granicus backdated, or get that old stuff if it's possible to put it in there? That way at least it's in there?
Again, I think we're getting off the item.
All right, I just wanted to-
And I think that's the purpose behind the second motion I would entertain, which would bring it all back, including the concern with the conflict of interest, which is probably the most important in my mind. But all the other stuff should be cleaned up by then. But I want to see if we can get done with the motion on the table, make the vote. Jim, you've got your button pushed. I'll call the question if we can, and then we can move on. So I'll call the question with that. There we go.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, and now Councilmember O'Hara has the floor. Or, well, you would go ahead if you want to make another motion, or if you want me to try.
No, I mean, I was just saying, I want to clarify, this is an old document at this point. And I want to make it clear, I'm not insinuating anybody is doing anything here or that there is a intended conflict of interest. There just is. And I want to fix it.
Yeah, and I'll make a motion then. I say we bring back the ordinance and the organization of UFAC for review, just to make sure that the processes and the information flow are correct, that there is no conflict, that we agree that there is or is not a conflict of interest, and there is or is not changes needed to the structure in the ordinance. I'm doing it as a formal motion because it is an ordinance and it does require the first reading, second reading, 30-day. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
If anyone wants to talk about it.
Yeah, and again, I do appreciate you bringing this up and finding it. So is there I've
No,
got,
I
I've
was in a
got,
second, I just did it on the screen, but.
oh, you're not on the floor. You have to be on the floor to get it to show up over here.
No, I didn't put the name up, I seconded it on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Either way.
Fair enough.
I got you.
He's faster with the button than you were with the microphone. So call the question, I guess, is where we are still.
I'm in the queue to speak.
Yeah, on the motion on the table that
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. I think from this dialogue, I'm the most familiar with UFAC. I've worked very closely with UFAC even before I was city council. On the city council, for 6 years, I was on the Environmental Commission, working very closely with UFAC. I know just recently we've worked with UFAC on a work plan so that things are, the work tasks are identified, and that's just like our commissions, and I love that improvement because then we've got, this is where we're going, and that comes before us at city council, and then we say, yeah, we think this is a good goal. Well, this one over here may be not important to us, but that's our opportunity to give input as to what UFAC does. So I'm really happy with that most recent improvement, and I'm also familiar with what UFAC has done and the value of it in the past. I don't mind. I think some of these administrative updates are good, and they're good for clarity. I am not in favor of putting all the time into everyone else getting familiar with what they do to see if it's still the direction we want to go, because I feel like I know it really well. And it's going in a good direction. And I think it's improving right in front of our eyes. There's nothing behind closed doors here. The meetings are open to the public. A lot of public does go and they comment, and then there's a recording of it. So I think it meets the standard that many of our other committees do, and we don't have that many committees. We only have a couple. But it does meet a standard that I think is an appropriate standard for it, and I don't see that it needs to be improved.
Okay, Councilmember O'Hara.
I just want to rebut that, and as you know, we all feel value from what the members of the UFAC do, not just the deputy mayor. I think we all have said we really cherish this group. What we want it to do is be as good as possible. I don't know what emails didn't come through from October 2023 and on. There could have been one that changed the entire city landscape, but we never saw it. Or it didn't come through. But I don't know. Neither do you, neither do you, neither do you, neither does anybody out here. So I just want to get it so that they have, we know that they are working with the best tools possible, and that is the information that they need, and they're sharing the information we need. And that most importantly, the public can see it all from start to finish. I think that's important in everything we do. And that is an area in any committee, commission that I would not flex on for any means. It is fundamental to what we do, and it being the thing that makes city government and democracy work. So while this is not by any means anything to do with what the actual Urban Forest Advisory Committee does, this is about, again, back to the process and us holding ourselves to the highest standard in the greatest city in Southern California, in the world. And so I want to reiterate, everybody up here appreciates everything that the Urban Forest Advisory Committee does. The agendas are fantastic. We just want to make sure that it is optimized and done, and we know that everything is on the board and done correctly.
Okay, if you could read back the motion, and we'll call the question.
So what I have is for a direction to staff to bring back the municipal code relating to the Urban Forest Advisory Committee for city council review and possible changes.
Yeah, and I think in addition, it was the process the UFAC follows from communication, just so we can look at, it all works. I mean, we'll leave it at that.
And just so you know, I've been working closely in our staff with the UFAC. It was a committee, and so it wasn't treated as a commission in the past, even recruitment. So over the last year or so, we've been trying to streamline that so it works like a commission. When it first started, it didn't even have term limits, so we instituted those about 2 years ago.
And if we're bringing the ordinance back, that's something we could talk about, is raising it up to a full commission potentially. So, okay. With that, I got a motion and a second, no speakers. Let's call the question.
And that motion carries with Deputy Mayor Lyons voting no.
Okay, moving on to 8J. And was this pulled by the public, or?
Yes, it's pulled by the public, and the person is William Teeter.
And is William here?
Yes, he's right here.
Yep. And would you like a staff report first?
I don't even know what that means.
It means he'll explain the item if you haven't read it already.
Well, I'm not really going to recommend not approving this, so, but I do have something to say about it, okay?
Then you can,
Bring up the slides.
okay, so we'll forego the staff report, assuming everybody's read the report, but please.
Good evening. My name is Bill Teeter, and I'm privileged to live in a great community of Scotts Valley that's in northeast Encinitas. You can see on the map here, just south of Olivenhain, in between El Camino and Rancho Santa Fe. 192 single-family homes, and at last count, 3 or 4 ADUs. So we're all interested in seeing what that happened up in LA. It doesn't happen here. So when we saw these new maps, we were really excited about looking at them. You know, we're going to get some guidance, and what do we do with them? But we looked at them and said, looked into the code, and it says you really have no choice on these maps, whether they make sense or not. You are required by the code. You have to adopt them. So therefore, at the end of this meeting, you have to approve this. But I really want to talk about implementation and how we enforce this. This map. No, I got the wrong one. Okay.
Oh, there you
Okay. So you can see. No. How do I go back? Okay, so here's that same community, and we're in all 4 zones. How should the homeowners handle these seemingly arbitrary differences? Okay, will the city implement 4 sets of hardening standards for defensible space, 4 different building codes? A palm tree in the gray zone here, if it catches fire, is going to be just as dangerous as one in the red zone. Now, what's the red zone about? I mean, these are all the same construction, primarily stucco walls. But as you slope toward Encinitas, El Camino, you get some open spaces that are vegetated hillsides, and apparently that's what makes it red. So fine. So also, by the way, your ordinance, the link in your ordinance to the maps is not to this map, it's to the old city map. So apparently that needs to get corrected, or it's something you do after you adopt it.
Right.
So the second is put something in the city GIS. Oops. Where am I here? Okay, the city has a fantastic geographic information system that shows the lot lines in great detail, as you can see here, and they're very accurate. I've checked them with the little brass things in the sidewalk, and they're very accurate. But, so we need to get the fire zones, if we're going to implement them by how the zones are, in this. And then there's going to be some properties that, for whatever reason, are in multiple zones. Well, you can't implement that. You can't enforce that. So we need to come up with a policy or something that says it will be implemented as the lowest risk zone that your home is in. Because to split a home into handle it 2 different ways from one wall to the other, makes no sense. Finally, uniform standards. So if you're in the red zone and it's the ember zone, there's nothing flammable allowed, but if you're in moderate, maybe it is, I don't know. We need some definitive stuff. The fire marshal put out a zone thing that was very good, and we need to build on that.
And if you need another
Thank you for
30,
listening.
if you need another 30 seconds, you had some AV issues, so we can, but if you're done.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, just 30 seconds and finish up. We don't
So
want to
the other
penalize
ones are
you.
work with the communities. I mean, I understand from this, reading the code, that this ordinance won't take effect for 30 days. Well, hey, it's June. We're in the fire season. We can't wait for definitive information to implement this fire safe stuff. So let's work with the communities, identify the top ones, say, okay, there's the top 5, and we'll, I'm on the homeowners association, we'll do what we can to make those happen before this becomes an official ordinance where somebody can actually write a ticket. And fire, there's the water department puts out water water-wise landscaping. And I'd like to see if there's a list of fire-safe landscapes that you can go to a local store and buy to put in the certain zones. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And if the fire chief could respond to the problem of single lots with multiple, I think there's future action we will take.
Correct, yeah. So with the adoption of the maps today, those parcels that fall within the maps will be susceptible to the current code that we have today, right? So the fire code is actually changing this year and will be, unfortunately, they didn't line it up very well. We are working with the state. So as those fire codes get adopted, and we will come together as a team and then provide the new adopted codes and how they're going to affect the maps in each parcel themselves. With that, we'll present the public with all that information, flyers, it'll be on the website, all that, so the education will be provided to the public themselves. So.
And the reason that the online maps haven't changed is because this ordinance is not in place yet, correct?
Correct, yeah. So if you look online and you click on the links for the current maps, they haven't changed. But if you go on the public safety webpage, there are maps on there that show what the change is going to be. So
Going to be, yeah.
as well as the map we're looking at now, there is filters on here that will actually show the fire hazard maps on this map. You just have to find it.
And then for people who've gone from not being at all in the very high or high severity fire zone now to that, does that have, once we adopt this ordinance, does that put any different requirement on them today with the current fire code?
As soon as we adopt it, yes, they will have a different fire code. But we're not going to go and knock the door down and give a citation, right? I guess it's in 30 days. Is that right? Sorry, I'm going to defer to the fire marshal at the moment on the exact date when that comes.
Correct. Once the ordinance is adopted, then it takes place 30 days after. But like the chief said earlier, the new codes are being updated this year, which won't be applicable till next year. So all this is doing is providing the new map to apply the currently adopted codes to the new areas.
Yeah, so on the currently adopted codes today, the old codes, if you will, is there a requirement that homeowners do something if they are, existing homeowners, not new projects, but existing homeowners? Do they have different landscaping requirements? I don't believe they do today.
It's just for the very high severity zone and the high, it would be defensible space for vegetation. And then if they sell their home, then they would have to do a hazard disclosure form, which we would go out and inspect and let them know what their house is made of and if they pass the defensible space standards.
Yeah. And then something we talked about in my briefing was the potential for doing essentially the equivalent of the citizen participation plan type notification. Have we considered, or could we consider, notifying the people who have gone from no high or very high severity zone now into at least a portion of their property, so that we can at least let them know with an informational, I think this all fits in with what we've talked about as a program, but is that something you're considering, and would you be planning to go, and what kind of cost would you expect associated with that?
Absolutely. There is some changes with the zones, and we sent out, I think we're almost done finishing sending out over 4,000 mailers to everybody that's currently in the very high. So once we kind of adopt this and take the step one, the next step would be identifying those areas where the gaps are, and then probably sending out mailers, and then making ourselves available to especially HOAs. Feel free, after this, I can give you my card, and we can walk your HOA and let you know things that we can do. By all means, we want to educate the public and help you protect yourselves and then come in compliance at the same time.
Okay, and I've got Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Well, I just wanted to thank the mayor and for our public speaker for the great dialogue on this, because it's always good to talk about it and to really manage what the expectations are. This is something new, and I think we need to keep on getting the word out more than we think we need to. So I just wanted to say I appreciated the dialogue, and I'll move approval.
And do I have a second? Okay, I got a second. And we will call the question. Now we're waiting for the computer. There we go. Okay, thank you. Now we will move on to, what is, oh, nothing on 9? What is 9? Oh, okay, great. We did that. So 10A, which is consider and approve a preliminary street list for the fiscal year 2025-26 pavement rehabilitation project. And the contact person is Engineer Estelier. Hopefully, what? So we'll proceed with a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. My name is Elaine Esteller, and I am an engineer at the CIP division. I'm joined here with our engineer 2, Bader Solomon, our principal engineer, Matthew Withelski, and our city engineer, Jill Bixton. Our item here tonight is item 10A, which is the consideration and approval of the preliminary street list for fiscal year 2025 to 2026 pavement rehabilitation program. Staff is seeking direction from council tonight on a preferred method for the upcoming pavement program. After direction from council is provided, we will initiate design efforts and start evaluations. The action before you tonight aims to address City Council's strategic plan objective to obtain and improve critical city services and infrastructure, specifically item 2.3B, which is to develop a plan to achieve a PCI of 75 within a 5 to 10 year period and allocate recommended funding to the annual budget per the plan. For the action tonight, staff has prepared 2 potential options. Option 1 is the rehabilitation emphasis. This option utilizes mill and overlay method, which focuses on major arterial and collector roads in poor to very poor condition. This has been the standard method to the city's pavement program and is the general default for our street saver program. Option 2 is the maintenance emphasis, which utilizes slurry seal. This addresses a larger square footage of the local and residential roads and preserves those in good condition and extending their useful life, though it does defer rehabilitation to a later time. A little background of the pavement condition program is we use the pavement condition index. The pavement condition index is a numerical system from 0 to 100 and is an assessment of the city pavement network. 100 being brand new condition, 0 being a complete failure. This is an assessment based on the type, number, and severity of the distresses on the road. The current citywide PCI is currently 70 and accounts for the 2025 pavement program, which is now in construction. How streets are selected are based on a number of factors. The city primarily uses a pavement management software called Street Saver, which contains information from all road segments within the city's road network and utilizes data from past surveys. The Street Savers generates a standard street list based on conditions, budgets, and treatments, and results in the best overall PCI. Next slide. So a little bit more information on the treatment methods. We are overseeing 2 methods, which is mill and overlay and slurry seal. Mill and overlay is a more substantial effort which is a removal and replacement of the top layer of the road. It currently extends the life of the road by 15 to 20 years and is generally seen on arterial and collector roads. Approximate costs for a road segment is $310,000 per lane mile. The slurry seal is a more alleviated effort. It currently patches and spot repairs cracks and potholes and other types of distresses. And then crews will apply a water-based mixture of asphalt, emulsion, aggregate, and additives to existing asphalt surfaces. This method is typically used to residential and local roads and extends the life of the road by 5 to 7 years. Approximate cost comes to be about $45,000 per lane mile. Now I will be turning it over to Mr. Bader-Sullivan for further analysis.
Thanks, Lane, and good evening, Council. So getting into the street list as seen in the report, option 1 here, as we mentioned, emphasizes rehabilitation, primarily mill and overlay on major collectors and arterial roads, with supplement on local roads and residential roads via slurry seal. Option 2, as we mentioned, is an alternate that we're presenting tonight for council for consideration, which is a larger emphasis on slurry seal that'll allow us to impact a larger square footage of residential local roads and allow us to temporarily see a boost in PCI by addressing that greater square footage, however, deferring that level of mill and overlay and rehab on some of our major arterial roads. So using current cost data and survey data from 2020, we ran some calculations on what the PCI projections would look like with both methods. So option 1, which is the standard list that we get from our Street Saver software, follows the trend line as we have typically shown to council in the past, where we kind of hover around 70, 69 in the upcoming years and start to see that downtrend. Option 2, the alternate maintenance emphasis, we do see a temporary boost in PCI given the fact that we're able to address a larger square footage via slurry seal. And then in between is kind of a 50-50 split if we were to split the budget between mill and overlay and slurry seal. However, big picture, given the budget we currently have, the $5.1 million, with the additional $600,000 that was recently allocated by this council, we still wouldn't have enough to completely change the trend of our pavement network condition. We would still see a downtrend in the future 10, 15, 20 years until we reach about an 8 or 9 million maintenance level. That's when we start to see our PCI level out at around 70, 71. So project timeline for CS26A, again, tonight we're seeking approval of one of the preliminary street lists, option 1 or 2. Given approval tonight, we will initiate design efforts, so we'll begin investigating each of those road segments, doing our investigation surveys, coring reports, and then we'll go to MTSC with striping plans that are identified by our traffic division. Lastly, we'll return to council with a final street list once some limits may change, some roads may get removed, some roads may get added. So we'll return to council in fall with that final street list and seeking authorization to advertise for construction. Then early 2026, we will return again to ideally award a construction contract and begin the construction phase. And our aim is to end construction in spring, summer of next year. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
And first question, we've got how many? 2, okay. Questions of clarification? 3.
Yeah, can you go back up to the graph that shows the dollar amounts? Okay, 1 second, I'm gonna. So real quick, when we're looking at the 2 different options you guys provided, quite a few of the roads on there, and it's just more for a clarification, obviously, are well above the 75, and our goal is to get 75. So we have a 77, 78, 84 that are all being selected. So I just want to get a clarification, why are those roads that they're already above, why are they being selected when there's not other roads that are closer to that, whatever's below the line? So just for clarification.
Yeah, so a common procedure that is used with cities all around our county is to both address roads that need rehabilitation, so the mill and overlay method, but also to preserve the roads that are in good condition before they get to that level. The reality is once a road reaches a level of needing a mill and overlay, it's substantially a higher cost down the road to then address that road. So we want to capture as many roads in good condition, preserve them before they reach that level.
Awesome, thank you, really appreciate it.
So I had a couple of questions too. I know we're doing a actual survey of the PCI this year. What month do we expect to have that completed? This will be a real measurement of the PCI.
Correct, yeah. It'll be the first survey in about 5 years. The last was done in 2020. We are doing the kickoff meeting next week, and we're hoping it's going to be about an 8 to 10 week survey period. So we're hoping to get those results in September and present the results to council.
Okay, great. So September. And on the trajectory you still have up there, is that for the maintenance option or the rehabilitation option?
This is for the standard option, which is option 1.
Okay.
But in general, we would still see the same downtrend.
Except you were saying that for the first year or so, it'd be 2 points above.
Correct, yeah, and you can see it here. So just given the fact that we would be able to address a higher amount of square footage with a slurry seal package, we would see a temporary boost in PCI.
And could that be an artifact of the fact we're taking a very big benefit from just putting slurry seal down, and even though long-term it doesn't really repair the asphalt? In other words, if we assume that every slurry sealed road becomes 100 on a PCI, but so does a overlay, that seems like we're taking the modeling is a bigger benefit for slurry, and therefore, of course, it's going to do that, but it'll drop off faster after that.
So that is correct. It's a temporary boost in PCI just to address local roads, residential roads at a faster pace. However, long-term, the mill and overlay method is the better bang for your buck, as that will get substantially more expensive year over year that we don't address those major arterial roads.
And I think I asked for in my my briefing, do we have we have the 5, I'll call it worst PCIs that we're addressing in the maintenance and the rehabilitation version, and only 3 of them in the other. What are the next 10 to 20? You know, which roads are the next worst below that, so that we can kind of see what, I think the trade-off is, it's very educational for us to know what the other roads are.
Absolutely, yeah. We put this list together. This is essentially the worst rated 20 streets citywide. So you can see Cornish Drive, Lone Jack Road. These are a couple of the roads that are mentioned in our in our street list. However, just given the fact that the budget we have and the pavement restoration needs that we have citywide, every year roads are left off the list.
PCI 9? Is that like a gravel road? I mean,
it's very much a failing road.
Yeah, wow. And did we get a copy of is this posted on the website? Or can we get a copy and get it posted on the website? Because I think there are probably people out there that would want to see this, the entire PowerPoint.
Sure, we'll do both for sure.
Perfect. Okay, those are my questions. Councilmember O'Hara.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, there's a lot of information being presented here tonight that was not presented in our report, and I would hope that information I find very important will be in the report next time, next year when we do this again. So I think these are great requests. I only see 2 options. That's it? That's all we do is 2 options?
So standard procedure in the past has just been one street list that we provide to council for input, consideration, and approval, and then we return with a final street list once the design efforts have been taken. But tonight, we have the standard list and an alternate for council consideration.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks.
Okay, with that, we'll take.
Just one more
public-
question, Bruce, because so if you go back to that trends chart, you're going to showing $9 million for until 2031, right? To even slow the descent and get us above what we're trying to go above 70 is what your goal was, right? And so
80, actually.
Oh,
Our
damn,
current
you-
stated goal is 80, if I recall. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what you put in your coffee, but we're never getting there. The idea, though, is we're sitting at a spot. Are there grants that we can get? I know that Davis has done a great job with that. I mean, we got to get to a place if we're going to ever catch up, right?
So right now, most of the funding that goes into our paving program is not general fund. It
Yeah.
comes from the highway user tax account, it comes from
Right.
Transnet, it comes from SB1. I'm not aware of any other paving grants unless you're using some kind of alternative material as a pilot program. So that's something we can explore. But I haven't seen other cities regularly get large grants every year for paving.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll take public comment. We have three.
We have three.
Okay.
Scott Campbell, Rachel Graves, and then Ellen Burr.
For the shorter people. Okay, good evening, council. My name is Scott Campbell. I live in Encinitas District 1. And last fall, there was a lot of talk about infrastructure and roads during the campaign, and I would like to thank the council for following through on those promises. We're doing roads, and I created this little chart. I found some data on the city website that went back in time and showed the number of roads that we're repairing. It's not miles, it's not lanes, but it's the absolute number of roads, and we're increasing it substantially. I asked the council to go for the preventative maintenance or some variation of that because that's just the most number of roads. Some of the stuff that we just learned is somewhat interesting. PCI is a number that is just, it seems very arbitrary, but some of those numbers were so low compared to roads that I travel on, and they're calling them 70s. I can't believe that. I mean, are these out in the desert with high, 10-year-old ruts and stuff like that? It's pretty amazing stuff. But anyways, keep up the good work with all this road stuff. Now, when we're doing this, let's be aware of changing the surfaces of these roads. Some of these roads are very flat, and it doesn't take much, even a quarter of an inch, to change drainage substantially and create puddles and hazards that didn't exist. Also, if you pay attention to the Mobility and Traffic Commission meeting, I do not want them scheduling lane striping. And I asked the council to be aware of inadvertent lane diets as part of this striping. And that's really all I have, just a couple of asks. And once again, thank you for following through on doing all this road stuff. That the city and all the residents of the city will thank you immensely.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel, and I just wanted to kind of pose a question. How many times can you slurry? How many serial slurries can you do? Like 1, 2, 3, how long can that go? And the second question I have is Mountain Vista. Mountain Vista from Gardendale all the way down to Olivenhain is in much better condition. The part between El Camino Real and, I don't know, the power line is horrible where we have the Oktoberfest. It's terrible. I don't know why that's not on this list. Via Canabria, that's a pretty major arterial, I would assume. That's all the way from Via Montaro to Via Molina and then to Encinitas Boulevard is what, a 9 you just said? Crazy. We need to get that fixed. That needs to be added on there. My biggest concern, though, is Parkdale Lane. And I've been looking all day to try to find out if it's ever been on a list before in the last 3 years, 5 years. It's never been on a list. And I was really happy to see it on the list they just showed us. This road goes right all the way in front of Parkdale Lane. It's in the safe routes to school. It's heavily traveled by parents with children. Children are walking on the sidewalks. It looks to be in much worse condition than Glen Arbor. Well, now I know the number. It was really bad. And 3 of the intersections on Parkdale Lane have just been determined by our engineering to be the most collisions in the city, so much that we're redoing the crosswalks. So while we're redoing the crosswalks, let's get that street done. I would like to show you the photos I just took today of that street. Can you just show those photos real quick? Oh, it's hard to see. Real glary.
That's Parkdale?
Yeah, but those are real glary. It's hard to see. Keep going. Keep going. And there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. This just occurred to me while we were listening to this presentation. Maintenance should include preventive maintenance. We do not live in an area where we have freezing and buckling of roads. We do not live in the desert where we have expansion and buckling of the roads. But we do live in an area where we have invasive plants and weeds and extensive penetration of the pavement by people for construction, development, or utilities. And whenever you break through the asphalt or you allow something to get into underneath the asphalt, then you will have problems. And I think that is a large part of our problems with both potholes and crumbling along the edges. And so we need to do some more. We need to make sure that people that are tearing up our roads repair them properly, because frankly, most of the ones I see along El Camino Real, it's a piss poor job. Instead of Public Works going out and whacking the weeds off or letting them grow, they need to be removing them down to the root, especially along the curbs and gutters and sidewalks. Because when you let water in, which I didn't know Scott was gonna mention this, that's when your problems start, at least here in the area we live. So a little bit more preventative maintenance might be helpful and preserve what we are doing. Thank you.
Hi, Natalie Satoon Cardiff. I just wanted to let you all know I owe Jill an apology because I did not know how to correctly measure 10 feet. So I wish I had an example. I don't today, so I wish that we could have a little how to measure 10 feet direction from Jill. So you actually take, if you're going on Santa Fe, you take from the edge of the curb, actually the top of the curb. In our case, the bioswales have a pitch, so we're actually losing about 1.5 inches on the pitch of the curb because you can't drive on air. So, and the bottom, they're not measuring from the bottom. So you take the the top of the bioswale, and you go all the way over, you pass the first yellow stripe, and then you go to the second yellow stripe. Well, then you go from the center of those 2 double stripe lanes all the way to the top of the curb. That measures 10 feet. So those 2 double stripes, your tire is riding over the yellow reflectors. So when we're measuring 10 feet, that's actually what we're getting. So we're losing about 6 inches, maybe 7, of usable, drivable space. So what you think when you're driving down a lane, that's not 10 feet. So I just want to let you all know that I was mistaken and that that's truly when you vote for 10 feet, that is what you're getting, and it's really pathetic. So I just want to let you know that it's a danger for drivers, and it's a danger for cyclists because you're going literally into the median to try to avoid the reflectors, or you are moving well into the side of the lane to try to avoid it to the in this case it would be a bike path. So please don't risk any more lanes by 10 feet. 11.5 is about the minimum that we need. So if any of these restripings are going down to 10 feet, I would highly recommend not approving it. And another thing with Santa Fe, if you have driven Santa Fe lately, that an example of Santa Fe, even though it's actually not even slated to be repaved to even be addressed for another 3 years, and it's considered one of the best quality roads that we have in Encinitas. So anyway, if you guys can maybe look at that and pay attention to what's up there, it's probably worse than what we are anticipating. Thank you.
Okay, and I've got Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Yeah, a couple comments and questions here to staff. I'm trying to get a good sense for myself, the difference between the option 1 and the option 2. Option 1 is using the default that is used for the street saver, is what I understand. And then option 2 is there for our consideration as well. And I understand that option 2 actually gives us a better overall PCI outcome. And so I would tend to, no, okay, stop me there.
So short term, you'll get a short-term bump in PCI, but long-term, the better option and the better way to get to improve the PCI is to go with the option number 1.
Thank you. That's important. I didn't understand. So I try not to be redundant, but so for a little while, because it's like 3 to 7 year extension of life or something, we might get something better. But ultimately, we're going to lose our pace on improvement unless we go with the default, which sounds to me like the superior one to choose. But I guess we'll decide that today. So thank you. My second question/comment is, do we have a process in place when we go to repave, no matter whether it's mill and overlay or slurry, to coordinate with companies like Ting or Ubiquity or anybody who's got a permit with the city to install utilities? Do we have a process in place so that we don't end up doing an important improvement and then having them cut up our asphalt?
Yes, we do. At our monthly utility meeting, we always bring forward the annual overlay jobs that we have, the ones that are in construction, the ones that are in design. And once the work is done, the road goes into a moratorium list. And there's a time period where trenching and development and tearing up of the pavement is not allowed to happen. If it has to happen, then a full restoration or a restoration that is much more vigorous than a standard trench to just repair a utility line is required for those utility companies or those agencies to do.
I'm happy to hear that. Any idea what the length of our moratorium is?
For a mill and overlay road, it's 5 years, and for a slurry seal, it's 3 years.
Thank you. Happy to know that. Appreciate it. That's it for me.
And we increased that about 2 years ago, right? And we went up to those numbers. It used to be like 1 or 2 years is what I vaguely remember.
I am not aware. Potentially.
Didn't we?
Correct. We updated the trench moratorium policy, I want to say 2022. That was when those numbers went up and the standards for trenching were increased.
And can you bring back up I'm going to probably hop between the proposed option 1 and the next set, the next lowest, the chart you showed. I don't have it that I can pull it up and refer to it here. Yeah, that. I really appreciate a couple things on here. You got the estimated cost, and one thing I would find useful in the future is to put lane miles, not center line miles, but lane miles for each segment, how long each one of these segments are in rough order of magnitude, and then the corresponding costs. I know in our discussions we talked about not all slurry seals are just simply slurry seals. That depends on how much patching you have to do, and you'll cut out certain sections. So we saw some examples that it might be a slurry seal, but if it's a really bad pothole, it would be cut out and fixed. So different segments cost different, even at slurry seal. And I think in my briefing, just as a rule of thumb, I think, Jill, you said that it was about 1/3 the cost to slurry seal per mile, roughly. Your mileage may vary, but
Yeah, it's actually, the differential is even higher with our latest numbers. It's an eighth of the cost to
Oh,
slurry.
wow. So it's
so it's the 310 per lane mile on this slide versus the 45,000 per lane mile for slurry seal.
okay, great.
Significant.
Wow. So the PCI trajectory, even at the 4, 5, 6 million, 7 million, is still ultimately dropping. And so I would like to, not tonight obviously, but in the future, understand how many lane miles we're redoing per year at the money we're spending versus how many lane miles we have. I know we have 172 center line miles, but the number's got to be double that number for total lane miles or something.
400.
400?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'd like to know, are we doing like 20 miles per year and therefore it's at least a 20-year? I just trying to understand when I get into that ballpark where I'm renewing the roads every 20 years and somehow looking at those PCIs, I think the answer is we're not doing it that often and we need to understand the bigger picture. And the reason we need this as a policy board is budgets. And we need to eventually, and it's not a problem we're going to solve tonight, but it's something I think we need to be educated on and you can help us get there. Let's see, so I support the full rehab, the rehab. In fact, if you can go back to the picture with the bad roads, whatever you want to call that chart, the really bad roads with the nines. And the question I would have is, we're doing 20, Cala Magdalena at 26, we're doing Lone Jack at 21. Yeah, we have Via Cantabrina and Cornish at 9 and 9. Why the choice there? Because those, especially Via Cantabrina, and even Cornish is a pretty well-traveled road. Why would we choose the higher number ones and not the really, really, really bad ones?
Yeah, so the reality is Street Saver is looking at a long-term view, and when the road is at 9 PCI, it could be worth saving a road that's slightly better now, and then since this road is already fully deteriorated by PCI standards, it wouldn't cost too much different, say 4 or 5 years down the line. But the reality is, given the budget we have, there's always going to be roads that are left off our street list. So we can attack kind of worst first. That's not typically a method you see in the county, the worst first method. But if that's something that this council desires, we can certainly look into that.
I think in addition to lane miles, the other thing might be traffic counts would be a useful item to know how many alignments are we hurting or how many drivers are we hurting per day to help make this choice. And so, where was I? And then my last thing on PCIs and more a strategic level, do we know what neighboring cities are spending and how much they're augmenting their SB1, HUDA, and Transnet funding? So we're talking about putting in another 600,000 so far this year. But are neighboring cities doing more? Oh, good. Perfect.
Yeah, we pulled together some information from some neighboring cities. City of San Marcos spends about $4 million annually on slurry seal. They do kind of specific allocations for certain roads. Last year, they did an $8 million allocation to Rancho Santa Fe. City of Carlsbad, very similarly, much of their $7 million budget goes to slurry seal with kind of specific allocations towards mill and overlay, resurfacing, and City of Poway. Not too much information, but you can see the PCI.
That's very telling, right? That's a great slide. So thank you. I appreciate that. The last thing I would ask is, could we also, and I'll have the rest of the council consider this, we had talked about we may get some mid-year money here, and I think I talked earlier during the budgeting cycle that my target was $1 million for pavement. You can see it. I probably should have said 5 or 6. I knew I was undershooting. I'd like to still get the rest of that $1 million if we get a mid-year reimbursement from FEMA and put 400,000 more. So if we could get an ad alternate, in case we do get 400,000 additional, that we might add. And again, my position is more, I want to do the road maintenance, not the, road rehabilitation with the grind. More.
And just to clarify, so typically all our paving projects, we look to have about $1 million worth of adults. So in case more money is allocated, we can elect those adults.
Okay. Well, make sure it's organized so you have 400,000 typically. And if we can get more, great. So, and I will yield to Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you. Actually touched on a lot of points I was going to kind of dive into, but I wish this report gave me more information to make this very important decision. I would love to know, I think there's a tremendous difference between roads that I don't know what whether the program we're using, does it include number of vehicles that use this road daily? Does it include the age of the road? Does it include what the road is made of? I don't have that information in front of me to make this decision. And those are all things that effectively alter or determine the life of a road, correct?
That is correct.
I also would like to see, when this comes back in next year's version of it, the distances of each of these. Because what were the numbers again between, was it 3.1 versus, how much was it? Or 310,000 versus 44,000, I think, if I remember correctly?
Correct, yes.
Based on the mile. And I don't know, some of these segments are shorter and longer, and that would be really helpful in looking at what we have in this list in front of us to determine how we're spending that money and if we need to make edits and adjustments, right? So the explanations have been amazing, and I'm grateful for all of them. I'd like this report to be more thorough so that we can get a better feel on what we're deciding on. Do we have a plan for next year and the year after? Like when we finish these roads, which roads come in the next row? What's the 2026-27 pavement rehabilitation look like as of this moment?
We do have those projections in our software. However, as we mentioned, this is a preliminary street list, so how the actual final iteration of this list unfolds and what we actually build in construction is still in the air. So we can generate that. However, it won't be perfect until we actually build 25-26 and we build 26-27 and so on.
I would also note that we're doing our pavement condition assessment soon, so we'll get new numbers and new conditions for some of these roads, and that new information will be used to populate the 26-27 list.
Oh, super. I mean, I definitely think we could work on something year to year, so we could look forward at the big picture. I think anything we do, we want to have a plan, even if it's a evolving plan. If we make a good plan to start off with, that road maintenance, that road PCI assessment is going to be something that is hopefully a confirmation, if we're doing it right, of what we expect based on the choices we make this year for next year and your recommendations. So I'd love to see call it a rough draft of a 5-year plan or something like that, so that I know if I don't pick Glen Arbor, that it's going to get picked at some point. Because I look on here on this attachment 2, and it's the lowest rated road of the slurry seals, but it's not on attachment 1, and I don't have an explanation for that. But I sure as heck would like to know if I pick option number 1, that Glen Arbor's not going to get lost because it's lower than all the others on the other option, and I don't have that confirmation in this report. So I'm just trying to make thorough pushes. I assume we can lean towards the list, but we can make some edits.
We're certainly happy to hear any input on any list.
I again, Glen Arbor, I guess maybe if there's an explanation as to why a road like Glen Arbor, which is a 69, is on a slurry seal for the maintenance emphasis, but then it is left off of the rehabilitation emphasis. It doesn't seem like it's a busy road. It's right in the middle of New Encinitas, and it seems like it would. We wouldn't want to drop it off of one list if it's low. I guess I'm just looking for explanation as to why a road that's a 69 would end up on both.
So part of the reason for that is list number 1 spends a lot more money on the mill and overlay, so there's just less money left for the slurry seals. So that's why you have a shorter list of slurry seals. And then Street Saver tells us what's the most efficient way to get the best bang for our buck. And it also looks at kind of geography. You know, if you have 3 streets that are next to each other and then there's a 4th street in the development, it'll throw that street into the list as well. So there's other factors that Street Saver looks at to give us the most efficient way and effective way to use the funding we have available.
Okay. Well, I'm going to circle back to some edits, but I'd like the rest of the council has to say. Thank you. Appreciate the answers.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Can we go back to the graph that shows all the different projections? The 5 million, yep. So I'm looking at the $7 million and the $8 million line. Somehow that doesn't make sense how $8 million has an initial trajectory of the green line, that is, has an initial trajectory of down for a year, while 7 million has a flat line out the gates for a year. Is that because of the software, doing the software thing?
Yeah, so it might be picking up like a really expensive road and taking care of that, so you have less of the slurry seal, so your total area of roads that you're doing is less, but you're hitting the really expensive one. Could be something like that.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Lyons.
I like all the explanation of how the software works and how we're using it and how we have used it. So thanks. The information is very helpful. I've heard enough to feel comfortable putting forward a motion at this time. And that motion is to move forward with approving option 1. And it's the emphasis on rehabilitation. And the reason for that is over the long haul, I think it's the best investment of our resources. It will promote the best outcomes given the limited budget we have. And I'll just note, I'm really happy we were able to put more money forward, and I look forward to continuing to do that to the best possible, in the best possible way we can to get ahead of this on our roadways. So.
I'll second.
Good. I got a second. Okay. Any other comments on the motion? Jim?
Yeah, I'll do it, but I'd like to amend it and figure out how we can add either to the list that you referred to, kind of add it to the let's get it done. Glen Arbor, and I know Parkdale Lane on the chart we saw is 9, and we saw pictures of it that I was kind of shocked, and that's right by a school. It's extremely busy. I'd like to see those 2 streets end up either on the list we approve or on the up next list, we'll call it.
Mid-year funds.
And maybe it'd be appropriate to get an explanation. When you talked about having $1 million, is that in addition to what we see here? Or do you take the last $1 million on here and break that up into add options?
So it very likely will include some of these roads as we get into design and we start analyzing the roads in person and doing coring reports. We will identify a better cost estimate of what this list you see here today will cost. If we're short, we'll add roads that Street Saver recommends, and we'll present that to council. If we are too high, we may have to remove some of the roads you see here. So this is certainly a preliminary list that will get adjusted. And we will look to have the base bid be about $500,000 lower than our budget, and then have $1 million worth of add-ons in case construction bidding comes lower than anticipated.
And could we also ask that you bring back the next 10 to 20 roads below that Street Saver would recommend, so that we can, when you're coming back to go out for bids, we can at least see what do comparative shopping is what I'm looking to do. I think it helps understand. And that way, if Glen Arbor is right there at the precipice and we collectively see something that we think could come off, we could potentially do that.
So if I'm hearing correctly, I've heard a friendly amendment from Councilmember O'Hara to add Parkdale Lane and as far as the tiers of next roads. And I'm sorry, what was it?
Glen Arbor.
And Glen Arbor. And I've also heard you to say maybe expand that list a little, not knowing that we probably can't get there, but just so we see what's coming up.
Yeah, well, I'm not even asking for changing anything on the list. I'm wanting to know what's just below the list when we come back to consider the next action, which I believe is the bidding response, right? You use this information to go out for bid with the ad alternate, and then come back when we want to let the contract out, whoever the bid winner is. And I just wanted, that's where we really finalize the last, because we'll make some choices depending on how the bidding comes back, and we'll see how far down we can go. And I just want to see what's below that so that we're aware of which ones didn't quite make the grade.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. So yeah, there will be another step. Like I said, this is a preliminary list. There will be some changes, tweaks to the list you see today. And then we will get into the base bid, we'll break out adults, and we'll return the council with that final list. And if more input is desired, we can bring more roads in case council decides to allocate additional funding.
And my comment was not a friendly amendment or anything, it was just a comment.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I don't know about Jim's.
I'm just asking a question, I'm just clarifying a question. So when we take Encinitas Boulevard and Lucadia Boulevard off of here, and they essentially disappear from the mix, obviously those are two of the most important thoroughfares in the city. Is there a long-term plan specifically for those two busiest roads? I know we're going to have them on this list, but in that case, if we were taking them off, I guess I'm circling back to our plan. If we'd gone with option number 2 and we'd taken Encinitas Boulevard, Lucadia Boulevard off, what would have happened? Like, what would be our next steps? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand with this idea of having a plan.
So we would continue coming to council with what Street Saver recommends. We could track it similar to what we did with Lucadia Boulevard, which was more or less a council directive, if that's something that's desired. But more or less, we would return with what Street Saver recommends after the 25-26 project is constructed.
So do we ever use our professional strengths to override it and say something comes back and we're like, I feel like we're being told Street Saver is the end all be all of this. I'm just I'm trying to figure out what the process is. I feel like if we're just going to rely on a computer program.
So we certainly look to input any community council feedback in our list. Some of the roads you see here today are from community concerns and previous council concerns. Also, projects that didn't make it in CS 25A, we try and include in upcoming paving programs. So we certainly, it is a dynamic list, I should say.
Okay, so when the list comes out, if there's something you prioritize, regardless of whether the program puts it on there, you decide if you would recommend it. If you feel it's recommended, it needs to be recommended regardless of it being on the list or not.
Yeah, a great example is Lucadia Boulevard. So that wasn't generated from Street Saver. That was a council directive, and that is one of the predominant roads on CS 25A.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I'm just trying to work through all this with the information, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I think we have a motion and a second, right?
And I just need a clarification if there was a modification to that.
I think in the end, no.
I think in the end, no. Yeah.
Yep. For option 1.
Option 1.
Which,
Option 1, but it was to bring Glen Arbor and Parkdale Lane forward on the list.
And so that is a friendly amendment, and
Yes.
I'll accept it.
okay.
no, still second.
Okay.
Can I get a little clarification? So if we're going to add those to the list, are there, our budget stays the same, so are there other projects or streets you'd like to remove from the list?
So
Or
I think what we discussed is as the next up, in other words.
okay, for 25, for
Well,
26, 27.
And
Or if in mid-year we
Or
have
adults.
funds to do it, yes.
Yeah, and further, we talked about the additional 400,000, and we talked about that we were going another 400,000 below the bottom of the current budget. So it's an add alternate type approach. So it may make it this year, it may not make it this year. It depends on if we're willing to put more funding in there, whether we have the capability to put more funding. But and no more questions about it. I think it's clear. Cool. So I got a motion and a second.
To approve the preliminary street list, option 1, to initiate design efforts for the fiscal year 2025-26 pavement rehabilitation project with the inclusion of Glen Arbor and Parkdale Lane as possible add alternates.
Yeah, as
Yes.
part of the add alternates. So they're going to divvy them up for us down at the bottom of the list. Okay, we got a motion second. Call the question.
That motion does carry unanimously.
Okay, now the question is, do we need a break or do you want to power through?
How many questions you got?
Power through, okay. I'm just asking the pleasure of the council. Yeah. So we're on to item 10B. Approve plans for installation of preferred barrier option, wood post walls or bollards, rumble strips, and additional signage on North Coast Highway 101 and El Portal Roundabout. And it is, contact person is City Traffic Engineer Bandigan. With that, we'll have a staff report. And while we're waiting for staff report, if the clerk can tell me, do we have public speakers?
Yes, we do. We have 2.
2, okay. Now, we're not allowed to take breaks. That's how you speed up meetings.
We're having a little tech issue. Do you want to do a little break?
Sure, 10-minute break.
Thank you.
We'll let Warren get in there and sprinkle some magic IT dust on there. You don't have that?
I got you, though.
We'll come back to order. I forget, how far did we get on this?
We need staff report.
Okay. So do we have questions of clarification, or we haven't done? Okay, sorry. I thought you did the staff report while we were gone. So it's a new time-saving technique. We do staff reports while we're all on break. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead with the staff report.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. A. Bandigan, City Traffic Engineer. Here, I think for the third time on this item, El Portal roundabout improvements at the intersection of North Coast Highway 101 and El Portal, the roundabout that we installed with the Seascape project. Very quick background. As you're aware, we had a. It's not. Yeah, it's giving me a hard time. We had a number of collisions after the roundabout was implemented. We did evaluate, reviewed the collisions to see what options we have for possible enhancements. In October, we provided some enhancement options to our Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, October last year. Then we brought it to November after Commission supported it. We brought it to Council in November. Council provided more direction to staff with regards to what options we should evaluate and do a thorough evaluation of the collision history. We did a deeper dive into the specifications of those collisions and the characters and what had happened, and brought back in February a deeper analysis of the collision history after, provided some information to Council. The direction at that point was to add more signing and striping. There was a specific direction on some specific signs. The rumble strip was supported. There was RFP suggested at a crossing, and also for protection at the southwest and northeast corner, Council directed us to bring two different options. We have two exhibits here. Not to confuse you with the details, this one and the next one, they're identical with regards to the signing and striping marking. So starting from left, we have the advanced warning signage and the yield signage for pedestrians. We have a rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RFPs on both sides, north and south, crossing 101. And then we have the yield to traffic in circle per Council direction. We also have rumble strips to give that additional warning to the drivers approaching the roundabout that there is a major traffic control going on in front of them. What's new, and we are requesting Council direction tonight on, obviously on top of approving what's already reviewed and kind of blessed by Council, is the two protection options we have on the northeast corner and the southwest corner. Option one is using bollards. These are solid bollards. These are not flexible bollards like our other bike lanes that we have in our bike buffer areas or some sidewalk areas on the edge of the road. These are solid. The idea is to have these close enough together so at least two of these would be hit by a car if a car is going off the road, not to have a major safety concern, and these would stop a car at 30, 40 miles an hour at least. The second option that was a Council direction, more aesthetically pleasing option, but a lot more costly, is to build a solid wooden wall with a continuous foundation, which requires a lot more work due to the utilities that we have down there, and obviously due to the material being used and the implementation cost. As said, the signing and striping and all the other improvements at the roundabout remain the same. These are the bollards that we have right now over there. The idea is to use similar, but with a better foundation in the dirt area that you can see in the slide. The additional idea that we received from Council that we think we can easily implement is to add a more aesthetically pleasing sleeve-type cover casing over these bollards to a wooden, to make it look like a wooden post. Maybe we would have some art or design options later on, but we will implement the solid bollards with this option, and then we can add those sleeves on top of these bollards after. And the second option would be these wooden posts. This is obviously a retaining wall, but a similar wooden post can be implemented. This wooden fence can be implemented with a solid foundation continuous. The cost approximately for this one was about $140,000, $130,000. The other one, the bollards, would be about half the cost of this wooden wall. With that, thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm open to questions.
Any questions of clarification? Just a couple from me. Based on the accident history we have, how often per year are we going to have somebody hitting these bollards?
Very, very tough question, Mayor. The number obviously was high for the 2-year duration that we evaluated. I believe the number was around 18, 19. Yeah. Not all of them obviously hit these two corners. I think about 2/3 of them, so about 12, 13 were at these two corners. I don't anticipate, with obviously the additional warning signage that we're adding, with the rumble strip that we're adding, we're doing a lot more than what's out there right now. So I would be very surprised if we want to have the same number. At a minimum, I would expect a way, way lower impact.
But we would expect over 2 years, one or more impacts to these. In other words, we're going to be replacing them. So my second question is, the bollards are half the cost. If a bollard gets hit, what has to be replaced? You just pull out the pipe, put a new one in, or do you have to dig up the foundation and put a new sleeve in?
Most probably, because these are individual foundations and they're not super deep, most probably would have to redo the foundation. Okay. But because they're individual, if a car hits two, we most probably only have to replace those two.
Understood. Now, if it hits the wall, what would happen? If we have either a concrete wall, or let's take the wall example. You had the railroad tie wall. What would the damage be, given some of the accidents you've seen here? If it hits, how much damage?
Yeah,
how much
I would
repair?
anticipate the structural integrity of the foundation would be impacted. So we would probably have to redo the whole foundation.
Wow.
If one of those major.
And that's a continuous foundation, so you'd
Correct.
be digging potentially a good chunk, if not the whole thing, out to replace at $130,000. Well, I guess it's only half. They're not going to do both sides, but this could be multiple times
Correct.
in a year.
Correct.
So, okay.
And a lot more timely. I mean, construction of a wall would be easily 3-4 times the amount of time that it requires to just replace two bollards.
Okay, I appreciate that. How many do? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember O'Hara and 3. Okay.
Just a quick question on the signs. The use of the signage, I know at this meeting from my notes, both at Traffic Commission and at this meeting, that one of the requests was to make sure that our signage is consistent at all roundabouts. Is that kind of what we're aiming for here, or what am I looking at?
That is correct. So the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission worked on a fiscal work plan that was finalized this Monday. It will be presented to City Council at a joint meeting on 25th. The top item the second top item on their work plan is a uniform signing and striping at all city roundabouts. Staff did prepare the proposal mainly based on this, because this was already reviewed and blessed by council. But we ran out of time on Monday. But this staff report is already ready to be presented, and as soon as it's approved, we'll bring it back to council for a design immunity, and then we'll go and replace all of our city roundabout signing and striping per this.
Perfect. That's going to make a lot of people happy. Thanks for clarifying that.
Let's see. Let's do public speakers.
First speaker is Steve Linke with time donation from Lisa Provenzano, who's here, and Scott Campbell, who's also present, followed by Rick Smith, and then Dennis Caden.
And I have a PowerPoint. I'll just start by saying good evening. I'm former Carlsbad Traffic Commissioner Steve Linke. This is a collision diagram from your February 12th staff report showing 19 collisions since the roundabout conversion. Each arrow here represents a collision with the date from the statewide collision reporting system. The 19 collisions are only the ones that were significant enough to generate a police report, so this doesn't reflect small fender benders. This slide shows that 7 of them, or 37%, resulted in injuries, 3 complaints of pain, 2 visible injuries, and 2 severe injuries, with no fatalities. Some view DUI-involved crashes somehow as different than non-DUI, so I've added the breakdown here in the red box. 63% of the 19 collisions or 12 were DUI-related, which is higher than conventional intersections that tend to be around 10 to 20%. But 37% were non-DUI, including 1 each of the visible injury and severe injuries. One of these is a bicyclist injury as well. Prior to conversion to a roundabout, which here I made a typo, I was working on this at 3 a.m., it should be from January of 2015 through June of 2022. So in that 7.5 years before the conversion to a roundabout, there was 1 collision, and it was a non-injury collision. So they were averaging about 0.1 collisions per year. After conversion to the roundabout, it has averaged 7.6 collisions per year, with about 2.8 injuries per year. And the subsequent slides I'll be showing here show how it's now Encinitas' most dangerous intersection. So in 2022, Encinitas published a local roadway safety plan, which we also have one of those in Carlsbad, that contains a comprehensive 10-year citywide collision analysis, and this is just a cover page from it. It has a wealth of information on collisions, rates at all your intersections and roadways, and I recommend that everybody read it. But note that the roundabout didn't exist yet when this report was done. So this excerpt from a table in the LRSP shows the top 5 intersections for collision frequency. The worst one here was El Camino Real, Encinitas Boulevard, averaging 4.5 collisions per year. That compares to the 7.6 for the roundabout, which would have made it the worst. Also note here that the vehicle volumes at the ECR intersection are multiple times higher than the roundabout, so the crash rate at the roundabout is enormously higher. Right, the state of California has a cost-benefit analysis system that assesses the societal costs of different crash severities to help determine whether the costs of making changes to streets are worth the benefits, and that's shown in this table that was also in your local roadway safety plan, with the various costs assigned to the different levels of crash severity. This table is an excerpt from the LRSP that shows the intersections, and I'm just showing the top 5 again, with the highest 10-year crash costs. The worst one here is the Encinitas Boulevard I-5 intersection with a 10-year cost of $6.7 million. But in just the first 30 months of its operation, the roundabout had a cost of $5.7 million, which would be nearly $23 million if projected out to 10 years. And I don't view this as a very legitimate projection because we don't know what it's going to be like over the next 7 years. But this gives you an idea of how bad the roundabout has been so far and perhaps how much you should be willing to spend to correct it. All right, so the proposed bollards or walls would not be expected to reduce the crashes, I think as pointed out by Mayor Ehlers. Just provide something to run into to protect the surrounding property and maybe people that are in the area surrounding the roundabout. So probably we'll need a dedicated repair budget given the frequency of the crashes, which is about 1 every 2 months. So 1 every 2 months, if that continues, you're going to have a lot of repairs to be doing. The rumble strips and signage are meant to better alert drivers, so those could reduce the crash frequency, but I'm skeptical that would be enough. I've driven that area a few times now, particularly at night. I've purposely done it at night because 18 of the 19 collisions were after dark. And there's a lot of sign clutter, what I would call, on on Coast Highway there. You have a lot of signs. I'm not sure that people are going to notice a small change to the sign that's there. My opinion is that's not going to make any difference. The rumble strips, maybe they'll have a difference. If 63% of the crashes are still DUI, I'm not sure. Even the non-DUI, I'm not sure if how much that's going to reduce things. And I don't know what the rules are in California for lighting, but one thing I would suggest is because 18 of the 19 collisions have been after dark, that higher intensity lighting be put on the central island so as people approach it, they can clearly see that there is an obstacle coming up, or even something like embedded lights around the perimeter of that central island to alert drivers that it's coming up, because when I drive it, it comes up suddenly and it's hard to see. All right, I won't read all of this, but inconsistent with Vision Zero, the roundabout has turned the intersection from one of the safest to one of the worst, or at the worst, whether you include DUIs or not. There's a lot of marketing suggesting how roundabouts always improve safety. This is an example that we get presented in the city of Carlsbad frequently, suggesting that you get a 35% reduction in overall crashes and a 67% reduction in overall injuries. That is clearly not the case. We have a roundabout at State Street on Carlsbad Boulevard, and it's the worst one in Carlsbad, arguably worse than El Portal. So these claims are extremely misleading in our local experience here. While I was on the traffic commission in Carlsbad, I supported multiple roundabouts and traffic circles, and I still think that they serve a good role in certain situations, but they're not silver bullets. There's a claim that they are self-enforcing, somehow organically forcing drivers to slow down, but I think you can see from your accident history here and at State Street that that's not happening. It still requires additional things like rumble strips in your case maybe, or speed tables, and even stop signs and traffic signals are put in there to actually regulate traffic speeds. I think I'll stop there and not get into the politics of traffic circles, but I would say be very cautious when making decisions to put them in. They're not necessarily what they're set out to be in the marketing claims. Thank you.
Rick? And then followed by Dennis Caden with a time donation from Karen Caden.
Hello, my name is Rick Smith. I own the property at 396 North Coast Highway 101, the Leucadia Glass property. Listening to what the gentleman was saying before, how before the roundabout there was less traffic, that is true because it was a straight thoroughfare, and the stop sign was at Juanita's at Marchetta. That's where people were killed. A nun got killed there. That's why the stop sign got put in. But with the roundabouts, here I sit at my desk, 40 hours a week for all these years. The major problem was they're not yield to traffic in the circle. Everyone says, oh, everybody knows that. I sit there and I'm getting all hand gestures every day because people are going straight on 101. They assume that they have the right of way because they're going straight. Well, on Leucadia Boulevard in Santa Fe, they have yield to the traffic circle. So I've just gone up there and sat, and everything works so much better. So I don't know if the sign that says yield to traffic in the circle is going to have any reflection on the amount of accidents. I have been down there when they called me because my shop was on fire because a guy went through at 60 miles an hour through the roundabout. Well, if there was a stop sign, he would have still went through the stop sign. Nobody can control alcohol. So there's a park bench there, he hit that, exploited his car, and then hit the tree, and then luckily the fire department was there within 5 minutes, and they put it out. So I had to thank Josh Gordon because I coached him in Little League. I was first president when they moved the Little League fields up to Saxony. So I just wanted to thank him and say, you made it. That was your coach that did that. So I think with just doing the rumble strips and the stop in the roundabout, I think that should be a great problem. I'm 80 years old, so I don't go that fast anymore. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll show that one first.
Good evening, Council. Dennis Caden. I'm happy to be here. Good to see you all. I want to take a minute to thank Rick Smith for all his contributions to Encinitas Little League and for being such a value to our glass replacement and services in Encinitas. We all can see so much clearer thanks to his and his family. This is a photo of the crossing guard at El Portal one morning, a little bit after 8 a.m. And she's responsible for safely getting the students across to Paul Leakey School. So she's holding her sign up, and you can see in the very right side of the photo, you see the tire of a pickup truck. And then go ahead and show us the next one. She was trying to get the crossing guard from Paul Leakey School back, and he almost hit both of them. So the crossing guard in yellow jumped back, and the crossing guard in red nearly got hit and was screaming at the driver something about his parents needing to get married. So I would say we definitely need the flashing beacons there, if anything. That is huge. And on weekends, I go by quite often, and on Sundays, I see pedestrians interrupt their walk across because cars don't see them. And it's human nature for our eyes, I think, I don't have data, but my eyes are looking for cars going in and making the complete circle rather than going straight like Rick was talking. So they're looking for cars. They're not looking at pedestrians. And I see near misses there on Sundays from people going to the farmer's market as well. So I strongly suggest, if anything, do the beacons. Now, regarding replacement values, would the driver have to pay to replace the bollards or the wood fence? And if that's an issue, could we do the bollards and like really reinforce them and then just put a wood facade in front of them so that if it's a light hit, all you have to do is replace a couple of boards. And if it's a big hit, well, either way, I think maybe then you just replace the area where the bollards are rather than the entire fence, if that makes sense. I don't see any nods, so I guess I'm not making sense. And then, but my first choice is for the wood barricade for the for the sake of aesthetics. This is Encinitas. I'm so proud of it, and so proud of everything you guys do. And thank you. That's all.
Okay, do we, anybody want to hop in? Councilmember O'Hara.
Sure. Thanks for bringing this back to us. Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Lyons and I sent this back for concerns of actually what Dennis just spoke about, right? We spent all this money on this beautiful section of road, streetscape. We invested in it, and we want to make it safer in this instance, in this roundabout, but we don't want to have all that money that we spent go forward. And I think it was great to come back after the meeting and say, hey, this idea of putting a wood cap on top of the bollards to bring that aesthetic piece to it, but to provide the safety, and also to the point that a lot of people have made, is if we do that and somebody hits one, we only have to replace one, not a whole wall. I'm gonna make a motion at this point to approve that option of this. I know there's still plenty to talk about. I want to say thank you for adjusting the signs in this. I know that was a huge point for a lot of the public that came up to the podium and talked about what they needed, and going forward with all our roundabouts to address them in that regard. I do think, and this is something to look forward to Dennis's point, it is a challenge when we put a crosswalk, a busy crosswalk, in this instance next to a roundabout. And I think we have a couple more roundabouts, I'm told, coming in on Streetscape down on the north end. And I'd really like us to make sure that we are using this as a learning tool. I want this, as everyone else up there, as safe as possible. But going forward, where we see things we can change, maybe not put I'll be advocating for that railroad crossing, and I'm more than happy if we move it 100 feet north or south away from the crossing if it makes it safer. So something to think about, maybe moving crosswalks in the future and where they are in alignment to where the driver's eyes are. To Dennis's point, I know when I enter a roundabout, I'm looking at the vehicular traffic. There's so many things going on, and I still look at the crosswalk if it's there, but I'm focused on not getting plowed over by a car. And so I think it's a lot of really great points. I think we've got a great staff did exactly what Deputy Mayor Lyons and myself asked you to do, so thank you. So I know everyone here has something they want to add to it, but I'll make that motion to approve that for now.
Okay, Councilmember San Antonio.
Yeah, this is a great report, and thank you for bringing this back. This is exactly what I think you guys asked for, and it makes a lot of sense to me. I think the wall does look much prettier than the bollards, but I think that the bollards, just for cost in the future, and I don't know who's going to take care of this if they do get hit. The driver, I'm assuming that would be the right way, but I think the sleeve makes a lot of difference in the way that bollards look. I think it makes it a lot prettier, and if the art is possible to put around it, that's even better. There's a lot of artists here in Encinitas. I was wondering about that pedestrian crossing. That's a great point, to move the pedestrian crossing further away in the future. That makes a lot of sense. It's such a simple thought, but that makes so much sense. But do the lights, if one light goes on the south side, does the north side turn on, or is it just they're independent? Just because I think it would stop, if the southbound traffic saw that somebody was crossing on the southern side, that it would kind of stop traffic from entering the roundabout, and then as they're crossing it, it kind of just keeps the traffic from moving closer to them. But I was just wondering, is that a possibility, or is that the way it works?
It should be a possibility because these talk to each other, but as of now, each crosswalk operates on its own. It's not standard practice, I want to say, because I'm thinking if a vehicle enters a roundabout and the crossing is happening at the far side crossing, the roundabout does a good job of slowing down the vehicle. So the flashing of the RFP, I would say 99% of its effectiveness is on its own crossing. To assume that if somebody's approaching, the first RFP would slow down a car if a crossing is happening on the second one, I'm thinking the roundabout is a lot more effective in slowing down a car than. But it's certainly a possibility. It's doable.
I just thought when they were, I forgot which, maybe Dennis or maybe Mr. Smith, with the way they come through here, the north and southbound traffic, they think they have the right of way. So I don't know. I was just thinking if they think they have the right of way and they're kind of still going, decent speed, I know that it's going to slow them down a little bit. In theory, that I don't know. I just thought that would be at least another way to stop them from going into the roundabout while somebody was crossing on the opposite side, since they think they have the right of way and they're just still cruising through. But all right, I just had a question. That was it. Thank you. Thanks for answering.
The other thing that I would.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
The other thing that I would worry about with that is we don't want to teach people to not expect pedestrians when you press the button and the lights are flashing. So we want to train people, like when the lights are flashing, expect a pedestrian. So if they keep on seeing the lights flashing and no pedestrian, then they could get confused.
I appreciate that clarification, Jill. The speakers, thank you. You've emphasized exactly why we are taking another look at this and taking the time to make things better. Thank you, staff, for doing exactly what we wanted. So without repeating my colleagues' sentiments, which I agree with your clarification, Jill, to kind of make sure we capture how to use those flashing crosswalks in the most customary way so people don't get confused, I will second Councilmember O'Hara's motion.
Okay, Councilmember Schaefer.
I appreciate the report. I appreciate what we're going after here. I thank you to all the speakers. And Steve, I really do appreciate the numbers you put forth and showing us really what can happen when we change things that don't necessarily need that level of change. Sometimes we overdo what we think we're trying to get. And I think the RRFBs sometimes, my personal experiences, I think the pedestrians, again, I remember growing up at Ocean Knoll teaching us how to walk across the street, look both ways. And even though pedestrians have the right of way, doesn't mean that you don't win against a 2,000-pound or 3,000-pound vehicle. So I like the fact that we're talking about RRFBs, but I just wish there was a way to have a countdown or something where the driver sees a 10-second countdown. It gives the pedestrian time to stop too and look both ways before they just bolt across. At least at a stoplight, there's a red light, a yellow light, a red light, a 3-second pause, 4-second, whatever this intersection calls for, pause, and then it says walk, and the audios that go with for the visually impaired. So the RRFBs are, I think, from my personal experience, is a growing issue for people thinking that it's the end-all be-all, when it really ultimately could, I think, be training the wrong, especially with now not just distracted drivers, but distracted walkers, especially going to the school, going to where they're going, down to this area, they're coming to the beach. There's just a lot of other stuff going on. And the other thing I'll say here is the picture that Dennis was showing, and having driven it multiple times, when the town changes so quickly. I had a friend live in San Elijo Hills, hadn't seen this as years ago now, and actually I think it was like about last year, he was driving through here and he was trying to point out some stuff to a friend that he hadn't been out here in a while, and he was driving down the street and almost ran into this intersection here because he was used to the stop sign at Juanita's. Half the time I still slow down at Juanita's. My wife always asks me, what are you slowing down for? And it's because the stop sign's not there anymore. And so I think we forget that there's drivers that are expecting certain things in the town, and when we change them, they just don't have the time to adjust. We could be causing more problems than we are solutions. So I think when, like what Councilmember O'Hara said, when we get to the north side and the streetscape, I think we really need to look at that again and make sure that we aren't just causing problems that don't need to be. But that being said, for tonight's purposes, I do appreciate you guys coming up with the alternative solution for the post. And then I think the sleeve, I'm hoping that it looks good, and then the art, whatnot, it will, I think, at least for what we can do here. But we're already looking at Santa Fe to redo this. I don't think this is an intersection we can even think about doing that right now. But I think there's going to be continued problems here, personally. But we'll see what the summer brings.
So I'll go next. With I prefer the bollard approach as opposed to the wall, which I think is what you propose. With the wood sleeve, I would ask that if after a year we've had more than 2 incidences that are obliterating the wood off the bollard and the bollards, that we consider eliminating the wood. It's just that much more to repair until we get the accident rate down to something reasonable. But I'll go with this because it's an inexpensive approach. I can support it. I was for bollards all the way. Let's see, on the RRFBs, I like them being there, but I have a couple of questions. When I was out watching Santa Fe and the city manager and the assistant city manager were crossing, one of the things I noticed is people get up so far, they really aren't looking at the 2 flashing RRFBs back here. And we had some, not near hits, but close, where the drivers weren't even stopping because I think they were almost beyond it, even though the people were in the intersection. So my question is, on the geometry here, are the RFB flashers so far apart here that when somebody's at the yield line, they won't even be looking at it? And do we need flashers on the road to help really, again, within sight distance of the yield line? Secondarily, if I then get cars in the circle and an RFB goes off, when they're going to exit, will there be enough visibility, or can they even see the RFB flashing? Because again, they're going to be off here to the side and they're in the circle coming around. I personally think we need several lights on both sides of the crosswalk of the active RFB, and that would make it so you only need to do the one. And I think to your point, I agree, Jill, you were talking about, we don't want to train people that flashing crosswalks are empty. I want flashing crosswalks where somebody's walking across and they have full right to go the full distance across. So I would like to consider that addition if you think it'll make it safer. And I thought Steve Linky's comment about lighting and the time of day of the accidents is spot on. What can we do? And this is where we talk about wood. Would it be, first thing I would do is put something that indicates that the bollards are there, because we want to make sure even the drunks can avoid things they see. And I don't know whether it's reflective or not, but maybe just something that's enough that their depth perception picks it up. Lighting the center island so they don't try and drive straight through it, or, you know, again, is it something reflective? Is it something so they easily see that something's coming up? You know, drive it at night a few times and understand what you think, what kind of marking, lighting, whichever you think would work best in order to get the accident rate down. So so the people slow down too, right? Let's see. So I can hit that. Yeah. That's it. So I don't know if I would leave that to staff to look at and test, and I support the wood-covered bollards until we realize that we're going to be replacing a lot of wood. Unless one of us is getting the contract for the wood replacement, you know, I don't want that either.
When the time comes, you can make a council-initiated item.
Okay, there you go. I'm going to be watching closely, and I'll take that up. I'll support the motion, and we'll go from there. I'll come back in a year or two, and if we're having problems. So that's it. I've got a motion and a second. Let's call the question.
Can I just clarify the motion just real quick?
Absolutely.
So it is to approve the plans and design for the installation of bollards with wood facade sleeves, rumble strip, and additional signage at the North Coast Highway 101 and El Portal roundabout. And then is it also include adoption of the resolution, which is approving the engineering, design, and plans for the construction?
I think we need that for design immunity.
I just wanted to make sure
I'm
that
seeing
it's
staff
included in-
nod yes.
And I might
okay.
suggest also, Kathy, that the intent was that all the other amenities, which includes the RRFB on.
Yeah, I thought that was included in the additional signage. Is that
one. Okay.
correct? Does that encompass all of it, or is there a
It
way?
is the attachment for the reso, so it's included in there. Basically approving the exhibit that includes everything.
Would you be interested in including just the option for staff to look at the RFBs in the roadway, in the crosswalk in order to improve visibility? Not mandatory, option at their discretion.
Absolutely. We're always looking to improve safety, and if we think that'll make it safer, let's do it, especially on the kids on their way to school.
We have to attach.
Okay, so
I agree.
add that. Sounds like we have the motioner and seconder.
All right.
Anything else? Call the question?
And then they just added something. That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we have no informational items. We have no council-initiated items tonight. We'll do the AB 1, 2, 3, 4 report, starting down at the far end here.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Today I attended the NCTD meeting, marketing meeting. We got great feedback from the staff, and I would be remiss to remind everybody it is Fair Month, The fair, Del Mar Fair is going on, the San Diego County Fair is going on. The best way to go is to hop on a breeze, hop on the train, get down to Solana Beach, and get dropped off using NCTD services right at the front gate. Take advantage of it. It's the best deal around. It'll be cheaper than parking and more convenient. And last but not least, I don't know if this counts in this, but I don't know if you notice, tonight we all have our yellow bands on. And I want to thank my council members for taking the moment to wear those and supporting that. The mayor and I attended a celebration of life this week that was pretty extraordinary on a sad note, but a great turnout in the community. Man, Encinitas, thank you for supporting that family. It was tremendous. That's my report this week.
2 Fridays ago, I attended the Sandag board meeting, and then last week I attended the Sandag Transportation Committee meeting.
Okay, and I attended on June 5th the Sandag Shoreline Protection Working Group meeting where we worked on our work plan for the next year. Some good stuff coming up. I attended the League of California Cities on Monday, and it was in North County. Actually, we had the meeting up here, and it was talking about workforce and economic development in North County, and heard a lot of good things from Palomar, from Cal State San Marcos, and from Miracosta, as far as their workforce development programs. And then yesterday, I attended the Encina Wastewater Policy Finance Committee, and a pretty minor agenda that day. So, city manager report?
Yes, I've got 2 items. So the first is I wanted to give an update on the Leucadia at-grade rail crossing project. We have submitted designs for 2 of the crossings. They're about 35% designs. We submitted those to the CPUC for approval on March 20th, 2025. The CPUC Rail Safety Division responded to the application on April 15th, 2025, stating that they did not object to our application, which is great news and means we're on the right path. On May 9th, 2025, the city had a brief pre-hearing conference with the administrative law judge to review our application. We subsequently submitted a statement, and we are awaiting response of the administrative law judge. We anticipate a decision from the administrative law judge on our request by January of 2026. We are currently completing the design and permitting by October 2026, and in the meantime, the team will continue to look for grant opportunities to fund those at-grade crossings, but it looks like we're on the right path and we're getting some good news, so that's very exciting for our folks in Leucadia about 2 possible at-grade crossings. The other thing I wanted to let everyone know is you will see a whole bunch more kids around Encinitas on Monday. All of our summer programs start. We currently have 5,452 youth registered for our various camps and programs that happen at the community center. New ones are happening at Pacific View Arts Center. We have a lot of kids down at the beach. We currently have 1,231 junior lifeguards, so hopefully some of those kids turn out to be some of our seasonal guards or even some of our full-time guards. So very excited to have all of the youth here in Encinitas and some of our surrounding communities participate in some of the really great camps, classes, and events that our Park Rec and Cultural Arts Division, our department, provides. So just wanted to give you an update on that.
Awesome. City attorney report.
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, city clerk.
No report.
Okay, and Jim stole a little bit of my thunder. I was going to adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Emery Shalikian. I'll get it straight. It was really a touching and a beautiful ceremony. They invited me to speak to, but I don't want to forget also 2 years ago in June, we lost Brody Champlain Kingman, also a 15-year-old on an e-bike. And we remembered that. In fact, Brody's mom was there and came up and thanked me. And I will never forget either one. And we will keep them in mind as we work to make Encinitas safer through every means possible. So with that, I want to adjourn in actually both Emery and Brody's memory. So thank you. We're adjourned.